I'm Tammy Lea Meyer, and I'm joined today by Matt Slater. Matt, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much.
So you are a voice of the impact economy. You're going to be attending the summit coming up this October 5th to 9th, and really appreciate your time and your energy in coming to think with some leading thinkers about the economy and what we can do. To start off with, I'd love to here's my first question. Are you concerned about the state of the world today, Matt?
Absolutely, very much. I'm so concerned about the state of the world that I've put my whole life on hold since about 2008 and dedicated myself to full-time trying to sort it out.
And do you think that we can turn things around?
I have no idea. Sometimes things look extremely dark, and yet there are so many glimmers and unknowns and black swans that there's reasons to keep hoping. Because without the hope, what are we going to do?
Exactly, exactly. And maybe you can share, if we could turn things around, how, what might that look like?
Well, there's a number of reasons for hope, and I don't know if they even all depend on us doing things, so that things can turn themselves around by themselves, as it were. Like it could be that the masses will wake up and change their behavior, or the financial collapse, which everyone's talking about coming, will force things to turn around. And the only work that we can do is maybe to soften it or prepare for it. So sometimes I think of my work in that context as someone who's advocating, talking about and building complementary currencies. Yes, it could be a money system for the future, but yes, it's something we also really need to understand as a way of transitioning to a different kind of economy.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things that I see is that it is the economy that we need to look at. The economy is created by humans, but it hasn't really been created for humans. And so I think that the work that you're doing, and that all of the people at the summit are doing, and many, many, many more people around the world, is critical in being able to help that shift. What do you think the questions
I think
are
the
that
economy, and in particular the
sorry?
economy and in particular the money system are not being understood or stressed enough. And so one of the things I try to work on is to bring the economy to the front of people's attention. And that's not to say that things like human rights and immigration and the environment are not important, but all of these things seem to me to be driven by the economy. And that's why we need to give it much more attention and bring it to the front and center. And I think that's what this conference is trying to do.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a lot of change. There's a lot of change in this space, and we have an opportunity to think into that and think into what's possible, as well as look at the broader context that we're in. So I would love to hear more about the work that you do, Matt. Can you just share a little bit? So in 2008, you decided to really devote your time to what exactly?
Well, in 2008, I was panicking because I thought the money system was going to crash. And I've developed maybe a more mature view of what that decline looks like as it's unfolding now. But what I did at the time was to focus on building open source software for complementary currencies and giving that software to the existing communities that were using complementary currencies, namely the LETs and the time banks. And so in all that time, I've been going along that line, but building up my knowledge of money systems and my knowledge of the networks that are using the money systems, building up my reputation as someone who knows about those things, and the software itself is becoming more and more sophisticated. I'm not suggesting that the software itself is going to fix everything, but it is something that I think communities need to be looking at on. Also, I'm focusing not only on the software, but in the last year, I helped with my friend, Professor Jan Bendel, to develop MOOC, a massive online open course, which teaches about the money system. It's called the Money and Society MOOC. And so there's several hours of narration there and some weekly assignments. And that MOOC runs every 6 months. So we've tried to make it an educative experience. So it's just coming to the end of the second iteration now. And we've had about 600 people starting. Obviously not so many finishing because people drop off as it goes on, but 80 people finished the first one, and we hope for a similar proportion from the second one. And so I'm trying to work across the spectrum of activism, not only just writing software, but also preaching, networking, and teaching as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it, because yes, you can build something, but you have to teach people about it so they can come. So I think that's a big part of the work as well. And I really appreciate your kind of holistic approach to not only building things, but inviting people to participate. The other piece that I just want to share. Yep.
In 7 years, I've seen quite a lot of projects starting and finishing, and initiatives which went nowhere, some of them very well funded. And this being my second attempt to work on the software. My first attempt went nowhere. So I have a sense of needing to do things as they're demanded and not trying to lead with something like software. Software is only there to serve what communities and organizations are already doing. And so one of the reasons for my success is an idea that I'm trying to support what's already happening, not to change people's behavior. I'm not trying to change communities' behavior. I'm giving the software to the communities that are behaving in a way that I want to support.
Yes. Wonderful. And what does the software do?
The software is just accounting software, but it's in an open source framework in a content management system that's very for communities to run and manage themselves. We also, in Community Forge, the organization I co-founded, we offer hosting for the software so that communities can do it themselves, but it's more efficient if they let us do it for them. So we're hosting 140 websites for local communities, and at any time any of them could just take the software themselves, host it themselves, continue developing it themselves. And there's nothing else I know of that's doing anything comparable to that.
That is wonderful. Thank you for doing that work. And 140 participants that's powerful, that's strong. What is
140 communities.
Communities, yes, yes. What is it that you need to kind of take your work to the next level?
Money, ironically. I've got to the point where I'm coding full time just to maintain what I've created already. You know, the platform I'm working on upgrades every 3 years, and I have to rewrite all of the software I've written every 3 years. So what's needed now is some programming support so that it's not all on me all the time, because the volunteers have not been coming to help, at least not with the programming. There's lots of people helping in other ways. For example, I live accommodation. I have no problem about that. It's gifts of software engineering. So I'm looking for some institutional support to help with the software development, but also to take the software to the next level. Because when I started, I was hoping that the whole movement might, naively perhaps, use my open source solution, which was the only one and still is practically the only one. But now I see that's not going to happen. And what we need to do, and not only in money systems, we need to get much better at building and using web APIs. And that will enable software that's running on different platforms and different web servers to communicate. Now, in a way, Facebook would be the ideal platform to do this, because in Facebook, everybody's got an account. It's all well integrated. You can make groups, but we just don't want to do it on Facebook. It's totally out of the question. And an alternative to Facebook, a social network that where we've got control over our privacy and we can write our own applications for it, it doesn't exist in any significant way where the alternative movement, for want of a better word, jump onto it, say, let's all do this, and we could start being integrated. So it seems to me that the way forward is to work on developing web APIs for specific services and to integrate across different platforms that way. But sometimes it seems the only one saying that. All the bright young things, all the people doing startups, all the people financed by Silicon Valley money, they're all trying to build silos which will take over the world. And that's just not the sharing economy approach.
Yes.
However, recently, I have been meeting some more people that are thinking this way, but it's still going to take a lot of money and a lot of energy to upgrade our systems into this new way of using the web.
So one of the things that I'm so excited about this upcoming summit is that we have many brilliant thinkers that have created things that are very powerful, and we have the opportunity to work together and to see how we can collaborate our systems and network our networks so that the work that we do is interoperable. As you're talking about, you know, these APIs are basically creating interoperability so that we can truly network and work together and have our systems work together. And so I think it's an incredible opportunity. So let's lead us into, what are your hopes for the summit?
My hopes for this summit, as for any summit, are mostly around opportunities to make human contact with people, because we have all the communication we need with the Skype, with the internet, with the mail and all the other protocols that exist. But what helps people to cooperate is building up a trust and a rapport, which comes much more easily through meeting in person. And there's also chances of serendipitous meetings of people you might not otherwise have bumped into. But so I think if we want to work together, we have all the tools. But in a conference like this, we're able to pay more attention to networking. It's less work to get to know people and to find out what they're doing, and to remember to look up from our screens and see who's around. So that's the value in it for me.
Absolutely. What are some of the questions that you'd like to have answered at this summit?
I'm looking for a center of gravity for the movement, because at the moment we're doing by default the swarm approach, and the swarm approach means everybody does exactly what they want. They may or may not refer to somebody else, and everybody's attacking different parts of the existing paradigm. And the hope is that some will be effective and some won't. But I don't think that's going to work from a monetary point of view. I think from a monetary point, we need a lot more aggregation and coordination and agreement, because the money systems which are in control now are absolutely monolithic, and they hold the absolute faith and confidence of everyone. And if we spring up with tiny little complementary currency systems where you can only get massages and jam on the marketplace, we're not really going to be providing anything realistically alternative to insurance companies and the banks and the hedge stock markets. So if we're going to build something significant, we have to aggregate. So one of the reasons I'm going to conferences like this and other things occasionally when I can afford it is to try to identify where that center of gravity is or will emerge.
And so really we're talking about movements and bringing together movements, because obviously people all over the world are concerned about what's happening in the world. And as we've talked about, the economy is a critical piece of that. So part of what's important for us to do is to make it understandable for the common person what it is that a new economic system would look like and how they can participate. So I guess my question is, how do we make what it is that we're doing more understandable for people?
Well, that might not be my speciality. I'm allowed to be a software engineer and get on with it, perhaps.
Yes.
But what I've done with the MOOC is a very long and detailed explanation of the existing system and pointing towards some alternatives, and showing how money and finance and political power are all very closely intertwined. And it could be that redesigning money isn't the way forward. It could be that in a new economy, we need a new money system, but the change has to happen on a political or a social level first, and then a new money system will result. But in
Yes.
any case, I'm doing what I can to explain how money systems work, so that when the opportunities arise and people think, oh no, we like, maybe the local, the national pay, uh, as it famously did in Argentina, and in Greece recently, sometimes you need a new money system. And so when those moments come, or when social entrepreneurs come to find themselves designing money systems, at least there's some experience and some accessible knowledge around. And this stuff isn't very easy to paint a happy face on and portray into emoticons. It's, I think, a deep knowledge is really important.
Yes. And so hearing from thought leaders like yourself and others that'll be at the summit, that is critical. That's, I think, part of it is, and I'm so happy that we will be making, creating some content there and being able to put that out for people to engage with and think into themselves.
At a meeting like this, there is an opportunity to go into depth, yes.
Are there some communities that you would like to see participating in this kind of economic dialogue about the future of the economy? Because you've been reaching into communities
Working
yourself.
amongst the Nets and Time Banks movements for the last 7 years, yes, I hope that I can represent those movements to some extent. I'm not in any way heading them, but I know what they're thinking. So I hope their voices will be heard through me at the conference, and I'll be able to take something back to them and tell them what's going on.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, really appreciate your time today, Matt. Really looking forward to meeting you properly at the summit. And thanks so much for all the work that you've done in developing systems for people to use and in helping to teach people about how they can use them. Thanks so much, Matt.
Thanks for the acknowledgement. It's a big part of things.